Saturday, May 21st, 2022, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So today we're going to talk about how there is no silver bullet for the cost of living crisis. We're seeing a lot of stories now. We're seeing politicians talking about how Boris Johnson or even Biden in the US need to do something to help with the cost of living crisis. Well, I'm going to say that's the exactly wrong thing to do. For government to do more will only make things worse. Isn't it ironic that we think of parenting, that we, of course, need to take care of our young kids, of course, make sure they grow up in a comfortable home, get a good education. But once they've done that, you have to let them go and they have to become self-sufficient and self-reliant. If we keep giving them everything and spoiling them, they'll come back for more, and they won't be self-sufficient, and you're going to be creating a problem not just for yourself but for your child as well, I would say. And for some reason, millions of adults, not just here in the UK, I'm not criticizing the UK, but everywhere around the world, for some reason, we, and by we, I mean the general public, maybe not you or me, we tend to think that once we start working and earning and buying our own homes, and that government, we need another parent. And that's what it's about, politics. And I go back to what the cost of living crisis is all about. Well, it's decades and decades of the parents spoiling the children. And that's like the welfare state, the corporate state, the military industrial complex. So I'm not just blaming the welfare state. I'm blaming cronyism. I'm blaming the military industrial complex, all the wars. That's cost a lot of money. How do you think governments pay for all this? Well, they pay through taxation first, and then when they spend more than they take in, they pay through inflation. And inflation is not what we're seeing now. It's not the rising prices. Inflation is the borrowing and the creation of credit and currency with the help of the Bank of England and the banking system. They've manipulated interest rates to keep it low, and everyone's benefited from it. Not just the government, but people who borrow a lot. They live on credit. It's built bubbles like the housing bubble, the stock market bubble, government bond bubble, government bubble itself. And we seem to live in a world where everyone thinks that we need our parents, i.e. the government, to help us instead of like looking after our own lives. We don't need government to be involved in the economy. The only thing really government needs to do is protect the rule of law, protect the individual, his person and property. And if you do that, everything else will flow into place, I would say. Will it be a utopia, a perfect world? No, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. But if big government was the solution, we wouldn't be having this problem. And we're going to look at just a very simple statistic here. Right now, if you look at the United Kingdom, the government spending as a percentage of GDP, according to the latest data here from Wikipedia, list of countries by government spending as percentage of GDP. And this is coming from the IMF. we are at above 50%. We're like 50.273%. So it means that government is spending more than half of the private economy. What people need to understand is that governments don't create wealth. And some of you might be saying, well, we can't let the unfortunate, the poor, to suffer. But I would say this is creating more and more poor people, more unfortunate, more misery. So, yes, it's not the solution, big government. And also, governments bailing out corporations. They bailed out the banks in '08, of course. They've been bailing out energy suppliers, I see. They've been bailing out American companies that produce fertilizers. And the list grows. They've been getting into the business of investing, creating banks to invest in venture capital. I mean, these are all wasteful endeavors that only take money and wealth from us and waste it. And why is it wasteful? Well, because government has a monopoly and they hate competition, of course. And when there are monopolies, it disrupts the market and makes it worse for the consumer, for the general public. So what's going to solve the cost of living crisis or the inflation problem? Well, as you can see here by this quote from Felix Sommeray, who was a very wise banker back in the early 1900s, he said, "The state alone is responsible for inflation. Inflation without government, or indeed against government, is impossible." So until we as a society decide that we want to be independent, self-reliant, and that doesn't mean to say we need to like be nasty to people, to because a lot of people think that people who want small government and free markets and sound money for that matter are nasty capitalists. No, I would say I actually want the best possible for my fellow men and women. And I don't see that happening with big governments. And unfortunately, as I said, there's no silver bullet to this cost of living crisis. It's not going to get better because we've had decades of government largesse. Government has been there. Government has been the parent that is really indulged his children, and now the parent is run out of funds and the children are getting angry and they want more from the parent, but it's not gonna end well. So unfortunately, what we do in this situation, I mean, on this channel, I try to tell it like it is. I know these ideas are like harsh, but it's the reality. And so let's look at all levels of, let's say, prosperity that you might have, and start from the bottom, of course, to the top. Not of course, but let's start from the bottom. I mean, I would say one advantage, if you can call it that, from the current environment is that people who don't have that much don't really have that much to lose. But I would say that there are opportunities, even in the current environment. And I would say that still a lot of people are going to expect government to come and help them. But if you are in a situation where you're not earning much, you don't have much, it will give you an edge to actually go out there and try to do something for yourself. And I know there was a politician the other day in the UK. She said, well, you're just going to have to cope with the cost of living crisis. You're going to have to get a better paying job and work longer hours. And I think that was quite insensitive from her, especially seeing that she's a politician. And they're getting pay rises, of course, because they can legislate pay rises for themselves. But actually, she had a point. And yes, I would say that's what I would tell someone if someone asked me. You just got to work hard. I'm not saying you have to slave for other people, but yes, the other thing I would say, you have to have discipline and be consistent and not expect anything from anyone and accept yourself. And maybe also be nicer to other people, no matter what level economically they are, because the nicer you are to people, the more you get in return. And I've learned that over the years. I have to admit, sometimes when I was younger, I was too driven and it didn't help. So it helps being nice to people. And when we get more to a higher level of, let's say, what you're doing in terms of income and your wealth, I would say tightening your belt, being aware that things are going to get more difficult, and not worrying about taking the 3 holidays a year. Maybe just take one, and not care about what other people are doing or saying, just caring about what you think is right to maintain a tight fiscal ship. And then we graduate to people who actually might even benefit greatly from the current situation. And these are people who have been, let's say, frugal. They've lived a disciplined life. They've been able to save a good nest egg. I would say that the worst thing you can do right now, and this is just my opinion, not advice, is to leave your savings in your national currency, or in British pounds, of course, or sterling here in the UK, to leave a relatively big amount or balance in the bank. That's the worst thing that can happen. You're already losing 10% of this purchasing power in the last 1 year. And it's been not just happening since 2020 or the Ukraine crisis. It's been happening since '08. I mean, the talk about inflation has been kind of subdued up until recently, but we've had shrinkflation. We've had rising prices for many years. So I think that's the biggest mistake, keeping your savings in the bank in currency or in sterling balances. And am I forecasting anything here? No, I'm just looking back at history and the situation that we're in when government gets too big, when inflation starts getting, not inflation, but the consequence of inflation, which is rising prices. And all it is your currency losing value because they've created so much of it. What usually happens is that it's very difficult to stop. And I'm afraid the politicians, be it conservative or labor, they're going to resort to buying votes. And when they do, that means you're going to get more and more government spending, more promises. And that will mean more and more inflation, more currency debasement. And there are a few ways, in my opinion, that you can protect some of your wealth. One is to have it in hard assets, commodities, companies that are involved in hard assets, because hard assets are natural resources that are limited. You can't create them out of thin air like currency, like government will will continue to do. And in terms of maintaining liquidity, and for this, I would say it's the opposite of keeping sterling balances in the bank. I would say gold and silver, precious metals, physical gold and silver are the way forward. And in the UK, I would be trying to accumulate sovereigns or Britannias. And Britannias also, you've got gold Britannias and silver Britannias. And people have asked me where to get gold and silver, and I have a promo code with Gold Investments, so you can check them out. They'll give you a small discount if you use my promo code Monaco64. But I also recommend people do their homework and look at other dealers where to buy gold and silver. But one thing I would say about Gold Investments, they've been in business for 40 years. Family-run business, and they will match any quote from another dealer. I have another option as well, which is called Glint. The Glint app. There you set up your app, you open an account, you send some funds, and you can buy physical gold that they store for you in a very safe vault in Switzerland, allocated account. And you even get the chance to spend that gold if you want with a MasterCard. So, yes, cost of living crisis. It's more like a currency crisis. And the reason they don't like to use that term is because it shows who the real culprits are. And the culprits, of course, are big government and the central bank, the Bank of England. And unfortunately, I have to say also the general public is going along with it. So we ourselves are to blame for it. Maybe not you personally, but generally speaking. So I really wish I had better news. But one thing I would say, it's not the end of the world. It's probably going to be a good thing going forward. It means that we need to work on being more self-reliant and independent from our parents, or in this case, from big government. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, and all these other platforms below here. I wish you all a great weekend. Take care. Bye.